Today, I'm excited to welcome Tom to Totally Music to chat about his musical career. Tom, welcome to Totally Music. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's really great to be here. My name is Tom Auton. I'm a rock artist, music producer, songwriter from Cardiff, Wales.
Nice to have you on. So, what first sparked your interest in music?
I think when I was younger, I think I'll be completely honest, right? There's two answers I could give here, and I feel like I'm gonna give the honest one. And the honest one was that a friend of mine, I was like maybe 9 or 10 at this point. A friend of mine was like, he started playing guitar, and I could see it, bear in mind 9 and 10 here. uh, he started getting a bit of attention from the ladies back in primary school, or whenever it was, however old you would be when you're 9 and 10. Maybe it was younger. I can't do maths, but yeah, back in school anyway. And I was like, oh, okay, I see how it is. So, of course, I was like, I want a bit of that. So I started playing a bit of guitar, and it didn't quite have the same effect because obviously I was doing it for vanity and not because I actually liked it. Because but anyway, I think through Vanity, I ended up actually really discovering a love for it. I think I always loved listening to music. I think it was like Green Day was like my first kind of like musical love. I think just kind of I think what I liked about them was the variety, I think, in their stuff. Obviously, they're known for kind of like their big punk anti-establishment rock anthems, all that kind of stuff. That was like the height of like American Idiot when that whole album came out. So that was a big part of my childhood. And I went to see them. My dad like took me when I was like 11, so questionable from my dad. Of course, like at the height of like all their kind of like establishment sort of thing. They're like, you know what? I know what I'm gonna do. Take my 11-year-old to go see this band. But to be fair, it kind of worked out for the best. But yeah, I went to see them in Birmingham in the UK, and there was a distinct moment in that show that really stood out for me that kind of really made me kind of want to go like, whoa, just the power of music, I think, and kind of like what it really had an impact on me at that young age. Like I could tell they played, I think they must have played like American Idiot or one of the bigger ones. Everybody's jumping around, elbowing each other, whatever, having a good time. And then the next song was a song called Time of Your Life or Good Riddance. And it's like, which is like an acoustic song. And it's slow, it's beautiful. And to play them back to back is like such a risk, or it could have been such a risk. But I think due to like the fan base and like that they'd garnered, like I don't know, they just had a really musically appreciative, understanding fan base that just shut up. Like after all that jumping around and like elbowing and all the rest of it, it's like they just shut up and they just listened. And like, being 10, 11 or however old I was, it's kind of like that was just like one of those holy moments. Like it really took me back. Um, and like from then on, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. Like that kind of like just the power of like, you had people jumping around and then the next song they were kind of crying. And it's kind of like just the power of music really spoke to me in that sort of like in that moment. So that's a very long-winded answer. But yeah, that's kind of like Green Day really started it off for me when I was younger.
Nice. So, who are some of your biggest musical influences and how do they shape your sound today?
Yeah, I think I definitely go through like I think a lot of artists may be similar to this, like kind of seasonal influences, I think, or maybe even like project-based influences. And I think like something that shaped, or a couple of bands that shaped like the EP that I put out most recently. I think like Royal Blood, like this is more like sonically. I think like I really took to Royal Blood, Nothing But Thieves. Those two bands I think kind of like were a really big inspiration in the last like 4-track EP I put out. And then after this EP has kind of happened, like there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in my life, like personal life, like big breakup and other stuff. And it's kind of like forced me to not look at like seasonal inspiration. So like, or like project-based inspiration, and then kind of look at it as a whole about kind of maybe who I want to be in the long term rather than just who I want to be in this kind of like in this EP or in this project or in this kind of short time scale. Um, an artist that I think that I've always really looked up to and admired, apart from like Green Day and stuff, is like Queen. And I think like someone like Queen or David Bowie, I think like purely because of their attitude, I think towards music was just like complete honesty, which I think is just so important to like just any art form. It's just like complete honesty with who you are and where you're at and like what's going on. I think, and no matter, and not confining yourself to like a box, like, oh, I'm the guy that does the big rock thing, so that's me indefinitely. Like, obviously, if that is you and that sustains you and that kind of like sort of yeah, if that kind of sustains you and you can keep that up, then good for you. But I feel like for me, I've always loved variety, hence why I always go back to like Green Day, like just the fact that like they are the big punk rock band or whatever, they are the big rock band, but they have those beautiful slow songs. And I think, yeah, I love Queen and Bowie for those reasons that they just weren't afraid to be themselves. And they, some albums they put out and a fan base that liked the previous one probably would hate the next one, but they didn't care. And I
Yeah,
think like they were just making their art. And I think that's like overall, I think those two people are like someone that like across projects, just I always draw back to. So yeah, definitely those two for me.
nice. So can you tell us about the first song you ever wrote and how did that process feel compared to where you are now?
It's actually interesting. Like it's kind of come a little bit full circle. I think the first song I ever wrote was after a breakup. I think uh I was maybe like, I don't know, 13 or 14. Yeah, the first girlfriend or whatever it was. We were together quite a long time actually, considering I think my age. I mean, we were there like a year or something. So maybe it was like, I don't know, 14, 15, something like that. And of course, it's like the most devastating thing in the world. Like you earth shattering. And the song is called Runaway with the Wind. And it's funny, I actually have a video of it on YouTube that I'm never showing anyone, but it's just there. It's just there. Just the kind of like it's a nice little reminder. And I think actually, whether I knew it at the time or not, I think I was just being honest. I was like, you know what, I don't care if like I'm gonna get bullied for this. That didn't even go through my mind. It was just like I just want to write about how I feel. I feel crap and I want to share this and I need to get this out in some way. And that's kind of like what music ended up becoming for me, was just a vessel for like any kind of problem or uh any issue or any question that I wanted to ask, even if I necessarily didn't have an answer, just asking the question open-endedly in a song, um, kind of felt like some sort of like catharsis from that. Like, because, obviously you don't have all the answers in life sometimes, and I think, but just asking them in a way that just feels like you've got it out
Yes, yeah.
is kind of yeah, it's beautiful. And I love music so much for that reason, that it's because a lot of as a guy as well, like not every person, and maybe it's true for maybe anybody as well as just guys, but I know that particularly guys struggle with, communicating their emotions, communicating their feelings, and that can come off, and everybody can, but I know that like when I was younger, that used to come out through just like, I don't know, maybe it was a physical thing. Maybe it's like, you'd go boxing or you do all those kind of things to try and exert that communication like sort of breakdown. Like you would just go punch something, or you'd be, quote unquote a bloke, and you'd go and do blokey things. You'd punch someone or something or whatever. And it's kind of like, bear in mind I was very young when this was happening. I don't do that anymore. But yeah, I think music for me just kind of like, it was a really healthy way to kind of deal with anything before it became a problem.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then coming back to like where that is now, I think that it's still kind of serving that same purpose. I think but it just helps me navigate through stuff. It's just like, and I've written this whole new project now, I think after like a 7 year breakup. Sorry, a relationship that I was in was for 7 years. The breakup didn't go on for 7 years. Um, and it's a completely different project sonically and at the core from what the last EP was. Um, but just drawing back to what I was saying earlier, like people I love, like Bowie, Queen, it's like they didn't care. Like I'm not concerned too much over the fact that like the last thing I put out was like a super heavy rock guitar thing,
Yeah.
and maybe this one is actually slightly more heartfelt and open and honest and just downright sad because I was, and that's kind of like really important to me that that sort of stays, and maybe I don't dress them up as something that they're not.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it acts like music has has been when it started, whether I realized it or not. Just like a way for me to navigate through my emotions, my feelings, and just make art that I'm really proud of.
Love that. So what's your favorite set of lyrics you've written and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, okay, this is actually an older song that I have, and so it's every downtrodden lover wore a crown. I'd be a king and not a clown. I
Okay.
think, yeah, that was. I think that was just kind of like a at the time that I don't know. I just think it was. I think I would just. It was one of my first clever lyrics I'd ever written, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's like my best, but it kind of it kick-started a new lyrical journey for me. Like that lyric and that song, just kind of like comparisons and saying saying what you wanted to say without being too on the nose about it. I think that sentence says a lot without being too obvious.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what made me fall in love with lyrics. Um, yeah, not so much that it's like my best lyric, but it's probably one of my more significant ones for me.
Yeah. Nice. So how do you decide which song releases as a single as part of the album?
So I think like I grew up on pop music when I was younger, as well as Green Day and stuff like that. So I think like I grew up on the radio, and I think you by doing that you have like a very innate sense of like formula and what like whether you realize it or not, what works and what doesn't in the like it's a question I tend to ask myself is like does it kind of like hit the chorus quick enough? Does it sort of like, am I floundering on something for too long? And but if I take that away, does that actually impact the song negatively? And if it does, then I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's not a single. So single, I think, is something that's just really compact. You've got you've kind of got like a universal chorus with personal verses and uh yeah, then like riddled with hooks. That's what for me a single
Yeah.
is something that's just undeniable, like earworms, like something like whether it's a riff, whether it's a vocal line, whether whatever it is, it's got to have like at least one significant or a few significant hooks kind of like going throughout it. And if they have those things, um, and a good like litmus test for that is kind of like showing my mum. So I'll
Oh,
show my mum, and if she kind of like can't hum it back after the first time of listening to it, I'll either go one, it needs more work, or just two, it's not the single.
so what's been your favorite gig you've performed at and why?
I think the most recent one, I think purely because of like it was I played Cardiff Castle
Oh,
um,
nice.
in the summer, which was kind of it is the big and it's cliche to say it was like the biggest gig that we played. There was lots and lots of people there, many thousands of people. And it was on it's like an all day festival on like a lineup with Tom Walker, Jax Jones, Anne Marie, like genre wise stuff that maybe wouldn't work, but it was like an all day festival and it was a really good uh test because I was worried that like the sound that I have is maybe a bit too heavy for like those kind of lineups. And I think actually the fans that were there really took to it in a way which kind of showed that the songs that I have are actually commercial enough, despite all the fuzz and distortion that are on the guitars, that they still kind of resonate with somebody of like a kind of completely different genre. Um, and yeah, I just think like it went a lot better than I thought it was going to go, and I think that's why it ended up being my favorite.
Sounds fun. So what's your favorite musical memory?
So my favorite and maybe one of my earliest ones is I have an uncle who's in Australia. I love him to pieces, but it's kind of like I was like, oh hey Uncle Glenn, I started playing guitar. And I sent him a video back in whenever it was like 10, 15 years ago. And I sent him a video and he just like, he didn't reply or whatever for a couple of days. He's in Australia. And then I just get a message a few days later. He's like, you gonna sing then too? It was just like, and then that's kind of what started this because before it was just guitar. I never decided that I wanted to sing, and um, I just think like his bluntness and just matter of fact of just like, well, you can't be a rock star without being able to sing or whatever like that. And then I don't know, it was just something quite simple. It was something quite nice and simple in like his cynicism that just kind of inspired me in a healthy way, just to be like, oh yeah, I guess, sure, yeah, I'll just do that, and that's kind of like pushed me on in so many ways, just to be like honest and open, and yeah, I don't know, I think it was just a funny memory.
Oh. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Ooh, I think there's a lot of things, and it's maybe similar to like people ask the question of like, what would you say to your younger self, and if you were starting, or I think no matter where you are in life, I think like don't lose sight of why you love it. I think it's so easy to get bogged down in so many unnecessary things like social media and having to do this or having to do that. And I think actually the word having is really important to actually strip away that you don't have to do anything. You choose to do art, you choose to do music. And I think that's really important to remind yourself that you choose to do this. And if it's something you don't want to do, don't cave into the external pressures of other people. And just because other people are doing X, Y, Z doesn't mean that you have to do it. You're on your own journey, your own path. Stay focused on yourself. Stay focused on making like the most honest, true art that you can make, and be collaborative. Don't cage yourself off from other people. Like other people are there to help and to inspire you, not to challenge you and not to make you feel inferior. They're there to, all the right people anyway are there to support you, are there to, you know, to encourage you and just lean on that. It's not like if you're a solo artist, like the temptation just to be like, it's all me, I've got to do everything, it's all on me. It's like, sure, that's fine, but if you don't reach out, like you'll burn out. So you need to lean on people around you. There's so many things. Um, there's so many things. But yeah, those are kind of the main ones. But and just and talk to your like talk to yourself the way you talk to your best friend. Like if you find that you do something you're not quite happy with, I would often find myself like, oh, I'm shit or I'm this. And it's like, well, if my best friend showed me a piece of art or like something they'd made, would I ever talk to them like that? No, I wouldn't. So why would I talk to myself like that? It's really important to talk to yourself nicely and, not kind of like cushion yourself. Like obviously be honest with yourself, but just, yeah, just treat yourself like you treat your best friend.
Good answer.
Thanks.
So finally, what's next for you?
At the moment, I'm definitely going through like as well as my own music. I'm a music producer and a writer, so I'm kind of like writing with a lot of other people for their own projects, and producing for other people. I'm producing a lot of country, hence the banjo and the cowboy hat that are just hearing behind me. Which I'm really enjoying. I think like I've fallen in love with storytelling and a whole new side of music that I didn't think I would through producing for other people. So that's kind of like what my primary focus is now and like broadening my skills and but my own music, I think I have I kind of got this concept of it's another EP, but it's very, very different sonically, lyrically, everything from what I've done before, which kind of scares me, but I'm trying to get it to the point where it excites me and doesn't scare me anymore. So which I think will definitely happen, but it's just going to take some time. And it's like the concept is loosely of, it's the five stages of grief or loss. And I'm like choosing to focus on the breakup aspect of things that I've been going through.
Yeah.
And for every stage of that breakup, it's like I can't remember what it is. It's like anger, denial. There's a whole system, the whole thing that you go through. And at every point, I wrote a song, and I kind of wanted to put that together, um, just as something that if somebody's going through loss, grief, hardship, whatever it is to kind of know that like that's so normal. Like it's so normal to feel that and just to put that out there and just hopefully I'm not saying it helps anybody get through anything, but it's just hearing somebody else talk about it in maybe a different light or a different way could just shed some light
Yeah.
on whatever it is that somebody's going through. And I think that feels really important to me and I want to capture that in the right way. So I'm just taking some time to do that. There's no kind of like date as to when that's going to be coming out. I think I'm going to allow myself time just to kind of like work through it and experiment and make it the best thing it can be. But that is my kind of next musical project is that EP.
Nice. Well, looking forward to seeing what's coming for you.
Thanks very much.
So a massive thank you to Tom for joining me on Totally Music. If anyone would like to check out his music, I'll leave all the links in the description below for you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.